Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
So, because I
wait,
have to
so
do it.
you're doing it?
Yeah, I have to do it from the Zoom, but then I need you to manage it in the YouTube thing. That's the only way that I can think of, like, oh, here we go. And now we're live. Yay! Okay, great. Awesome. Just a little bit of lag and a little bit of technical fun, which is great and in keeping with our theme for the day, as we did earlier. Okay, yes. So Aidan, if you're going to be technological master, can you like see what the URL is for
Yes.
the live stream? And then I guess put it in the general chat, and then we'll see if everyone wants to join us and maybe test out the messaging thing on YouTube.
Okay.
So I do think let's go ahead and let's take our microphones and make them sound, and then it'll be like we're in the same room together. Hey guys, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Awesome. Yay, it's working. Yeah, okay. So I can go ahead and just like introduce what we're doing. It's it's pretty basic. We're talking to each other on a live stream. And the whole point of us doing this is basically just to kind of recreate the experience that we would normally have in non-coronavirus world, where we would be like sitting in the resource center at Nonviolence International, New York, and we would be talking to each other, and we would be like talking about like projects that we're working on, and conversations would bloom, and we would like have a relationship with each other, and we would know who each other are. And yeah, we wanted to make sure that that's still like a thing that can happen, even though we're all over the place. So maybe let's go around and say like who we are, and yeah, that'll be like really brief. And then we can get into our first piece of information that we will discuss. So yeah, I'll go first. My name is Nicole Himel. I am a research analyst at Nonviolence New York. I'm calling in or zooming in from New York. And yeah, I work on nonviolent methodologies and also the United for Change project, which is a new project for the summer.
I'm Aidan McLeod. I am a video journalism volunteer, I think. And I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut right now, just working on a couple video projects. Yeah.
I can go next. My name's Sarah Colburn. I'm a research analyst. I'm working on the online advocacy journal, so connecting activists and organizers to resources in nonviolent methodologies, and also to lots of our work over the past few years. And I'm calling in from Toronto, Ontario, and it is real windy.
Yeah, well, hi, I'm Nishka. I'm also interning as a research analyst for the advocacy department. I'm calling from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. It's a small town outside of Minneapolis. Really nice today. I'm working also on the United for Change project, and also with the, why am I blanking? Civil society engagement project, yeah.
Yeah, there's like every time, okay, so the program that I'm in for school, we have so many letters, like it's just acronym city. We're like HRHP, UNIO, blah, 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 and so everybody has like all of their letters, and then whenever we're doing all these icebreaker things, we're always like, okay, what's the alphabet soup of like what I am and like what's going on? Because like the civil society engagements, like I've seen on the list, like this is CSC, this is blah, 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 I just found out what ARC meant today. I didn't even know what that was, Sarah.
Yeah. ARC is the Arizona Research Center, for those of you who don't know, which is not intuitive at all because we work for the Nonviolence New York office. And so I don't feel like anyone's like, oh yeah, the Arizona Research Center is clearly like also under this umbrella. So totally understandable confusion.
I think it may, like the more that you learn about like the dynamics of, and like the history of Nonviolence International, the more you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. But like if you didn't already, get like familiar and like, intimately acquainted with like the goings on, then yeah, it's very counterintuitive.
Yeah, orientation was just me writing down acronyms. I have like an entire sheet of my notebook that is just acronyms because someone would be presenting and I'd be like, everyone else is nodding. Are we supposed to know what this means? And then I'd like write it down and look it up later. It was so bad.
For the
I
long
feel like everybody's making it up. We're like, yeah,
Mhm.
I know what's going on. Nishka, what were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say, for the longest time, I didn't know U4C stood for United for Change, and I kept seeing it in places. And whenever I'd hear it, I'd hear UFC. And I was like, oh, it's interesting that Nonviolence is working with this, like, I think it's like fighting or something. And I was like, wow, that's a turn.
Ultimate Fighting Champion. We should call it that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think okay. So 110. Yeah. All right, we can go into our first like topic, I think. Feel prepped. So yeah, so basically I just kind of wanted to see, and I want to go last because my story is ridiculous, but like kind of how like what got you interested in Nonviolence International, and like how did you hear about the internship program, and like what made you want to join it? And I think we have a good order flow going on, so let's keep that repeating. I got like Aidan, and then Sarah, and then Nishka.
Sounds good. The way I was just looking for a summer internship last semester, or not summer, spring internship last semester, and I came across it, and I've always been like interested in trying to improve the world. I guess that sounds very high and mighty, but found it on a job posting and submitted an application. I think I joined like a month late, probably.
Oh, really?
After it had already started, yeah. But yeah, no, I walked in and met everyone. Wasn't really sure what to expect. Had to take the train. So before coronavirus, I had like a hour and a half commute.
Did you know that you were gonna do like? Did you? Because you're on the media team.
Yeah, no, I knew I was going to do that. That was the goal. I was looking for. I have like a personal interest in like video editing and stuff like that. So I knew that was something I was looking for, and so when I saw it, it seemed perfect.
But you already like accidentally, or not accidentally, but you already had like a background in like and you're an undergrad, right? Like in something.
Yeah. I have one semester left of undergrad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yay.
But yeah, I have a political science background, and yeah, like I've taken a lot of theory courses and stuff like that. So I also have like some of the advocacy stuff going on.
Cool. Sarah?
All right. Well, that leaves me with a pretty good jumping off point. I also have a political science background. I just finished undergrad. I graduated at the start of June. Actually, the day before this internship started, I graduated on lovely YouTube. So very fitting, really. Yeah, so I had done my undergrad in political science and history. And last summer, I worked for the US State Department. And did work with like water quality on the US-Canada border. But that was like a very bureaucratic kind of job. And so, but most of my engagement in Toronto was like doing work with various clubs and student societies and activist stuff. And so I was like, okay, I've done like the really bureaucratic angle and I've done the really grassroots level. And I was like, I feel like looking for like an NGO nonprofit kind of position just made sense to kind of
no.
government level and like doing, oh no, did I freeze up?
Yeah, you froze for a minute.
Oh,
yeah.
damn. Okay.
But you're coming back slowly and I think you're good now.
Okay. Can I ask where I faded out?
You were looking for like an NGO thing because it was like in the middle.
Yeah, basically. So because I had done some government work, but also done some really grassroots like student organizing stuff, I kind of figured this would be a good middle ground to flesh out my skills before I go for my master's in the fall. So yeah.
Can I ask, you said you worked at water quality. Were you like testing the quality of the water, trying to improve the quality, make it worse? Like,
were you poisoning it?
So this is a little bit of a technical answer, but there's the US and Canada have this treaty called the Boundary Waters Treaty from 1909, which was basically that both sides of the US-Canada border, people were just dumping pollution mostly into the Great Lakes, which I guess is not a huge surprise for like, like high industrial era. Yeah, and people started being like, this is really dangerous. We're not good at filtering water once it's contaminated. So they signed on to this treaty and formed what's known as the International Joint Commission. And so they do reports. So there is a very scientific angle. We worked with the Army Corps of Engineers, who did most of the actual testing, and also with a few universities. But I worked mostly public relations and legal. So I hosted a whole bunch of town halls and stuff, which were super interesting. And I got to go a bunch of places that I'd never been before. So I hosted town halls in Milwaukee and Rochester, New York, and like all of these places near the Great Lakes region where we talked about like, hey, like, what are you worried about with your water? Like, is it hard for you to access it besides for drinking water? Like, would you like to be able to swim or fish? What are ways that like you would feel safer doing those activities, knowing that like the water has been contaminated in the past? Yeah, it was such an instructive experience, but I was also like, I want to be able to use all of these skills of like talking with people and actually be able to, write some research of my own. Right. So yeah, I thought this was like a really fitting opportunity for that.
So I guess it's like it was pretty recent, but like, do you know how the water is?
Yeah, so it's actually not as bad as you'd expect. The problem is mostly emerging threats. So chlorfluoroalkenes, it's known as PFAS basically.
Sounds like something in my shampoo.
Yeah, it actually leaks off from a lot of like fertilizers and stuff. And also nitrogen in fertilizer means that the lakes get more nitrogen than they used to. So Lake Erie has been reporting these like really tragic algal blooms, which can make the water so toxic. Like Toledo, Ohio actually had a case in 2014 where basically the entire city was on like a boil water advisory because they couldn't use their tap water. Yeah. So there definitely is some serious problems, but most of the like traditional threats that you'd think of are actually going down. So like mercury and lead and that kind of stuff are far less common problems. But yeah, I'd say PFAS, nitrogen, like fertilizers, and probably microplastics is the other one we get a lot of people worried about. And we get a lot of questions about nuclear waste, but that's not actually bad at all. Like there's none in the lakes, but there is some nuclear power plants on the Canadian side for sure. And we do get a ton of people at town halls that are like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna drink the water and it's like radioactive. And you're like, that's not how that works, ma'am. Like, I swear.
No, I just a few days ago or weeks ago, I guess, watched Dark Waters. I assume you
yeah,
know.
What is that? I don't know what it is.
It's this really interesting, I mean, it's not really a documentary, but it's like based on a true story about Teflon, like I forget I don't know what the material is actually called. You probably do.
Not off the top of my head, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Teflon is like really, really, really super dangerous. And they were just like dumping it in lakes and rivers and stuff. And it was like getting into the groundwater. It killed a whole bunch of cows is how like the lawyer in the movie found out about it. But yeah, it was like giving a whole bunch of people cancer, and it wasn't like regulated because like the regulation just hadn't caught up with the chemical itself. And so they were allowed to just dump as much as they wanted in and just like kill like thousands of people.
Yeah,
this is the
huge problem.
No, it's 2000s.
Like, yeah, this is the huge problem with emerging threats, is that it was one of the biggest priorities for us because so many companies are getting like patents and stuff approved to make things that we don't necessarily know if they have long-term effects or not. And that can be really dangerous, but there's also the incentive to innovate. And so balancing those can be really hard. And that was one of the like interesting things to understand about doing government work, is that we didn't grant patents, and we also weren't the like EPA, so we couldn't necessarily regulate what people choose to dump. And so it was a lot of learning how all of these constituent parts can work together really well, and can also kind of fail you if there's an oversight somewhere else.
It's so, I always think about like when it comes to like regulations, and I really enjoy like seeing how people are at the heart of everything. And so whether it's like the internet or whether it's like business or whatever, you can see like how like a human would behave, like at the core of like behavior. And it's always interesting to me how it really is like, you know, kids really need structure and they are always trying to figure out like, well, what are the rules? Like, what can I get away with? And it's the way that we orient ourselves in relation to the groups that we're in, right? We're trying to find out what the boundaries are and what the rules are. And it's really interesting to me that it's like, you know, there are holes everywhere because people are working on certain things, but they're not all working on the same thing, you know? And so like, if you are like trying to get away with stuff, you can find it because there's not an adult in this area yet. So you're like, yeah, I'll just throw this over here. No one's going to tell me to clean it up. Okay, bye, you know? And no one finds out about it until like later. Unfortunately, consequences of action, and then a bunch of people die. So that's not a great thing.
Oh, also the companies knew. The companies knew that the Teflon was killing people. They just didn't care.
Yeah, they're, you know, they can get away with it. Like,
that sounds like a movie I need to watch. That's so interesting.
It's really interesting.
Sarah, did you get to travel to the Boundary Waters area? I know you said you were around there.
Yeah, so I went on a bunch of like business trips basically. So yeah, I did some trips in New York and Wisconsin. I was up in Ontario and on the Canadian side. Yeah, you know, was super interesting, and also a bunch of places I hadn't been before. So yeah, obviously I'd been to Ontario. I mean, I live here, but lots of the US stuff I hadn't gone to see. And it was really fascinating just how much people were worried about similar or really different, like localized issues, and also how that affected their perception of what they got out of the Great Lakes. Like, we went to some tourist towns in like northern Michigan, and they were like, well, the Great Lakes are like the best thing that's ever happened to us. Like, we would have no economy, we would have no produce, like everything that they rely on is facilitated by the fact that they're surrounded by the Great Lakes, basically. But when we went to Milwaukee and stuff, it would be like, well, they'd be like, this has been held in a part of town that's like predominantly white. And so like, you're not talking to the people who actually have the least access to the lake's resources. And we were like, yeah, that is like a really big problem that you don't necessarily think of when you're flying out from DC, is like how much of a difference it would make to schedule it like 4 miles away or something in a different part of town to actually get more like critical feedback of how hard it is to access Lake Michigan, and like how the rivers in Milwaukee run into the lake really affects how people access it, and because those rivers are not of equal quality in terms of water quality. So I learned a ton about just how localized those experiences can be. And yeah, it was so fascinating. I'm really lucky I got to travel though, because I know that most government interns don't usually. It's usually much more office work. So
yeah, I ask because my family's from Minnesota, so every time we're here we go up to the Boundary Waters, and I wasn't aware that like there was actual work being done on that, so that's like really good to hear.
yeah, no, I think the Boundary Waters in Michigan are supposed to be beautiful, but the trip was after my internship ended, so I hope you've gotten to enjoy the views. I've seen photos and it looks incredible.
It's beautiful. I'm not the best on a kayak. Have had many accidents, but it's just such a beautiful area. It's worth it. So definitely.
Well, you should go introduce yourself. We've talked about my stuff for long enough.
That was
Like,
good. Excellent drawing out, you guys. This is good content.
I forgot that's what we were doing. Yeah, so I'm Nishka. Wait, did we already do that?
No, you gotta go.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm interning as a research analyst in the advocacy department. And I'm sorry, guys, I just like totally forgot where we were.
Yeah, we're just talking about like what got us interested in Nonviolence International New York and like how we kind of started like knowing about the internship and like why we thought it would be good. Yeah.
Yes. So similar, I was just looking for internships for the summer, and there aren't a lot of places offering remote internships. So got really lucky.
That's fact.
Nonviolence was like on top of that. I think I found it on LinkedIn, and I did a lot of research on the website, and it looked really interesting, kind of aligns with my undergrad degree. I was international affairs and geography, and I felt like I didn't take enough courses on peace, and I took a lot of courses on like conflict and conflict strategies and not enough on peace building. I took one course and it pretty much changed my entire perspective on what my degree was about. Unfortunately, it was while I was right before I was graduating. And so I felt like this was like the perfect internship to kind of learn more and get to experience it. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I feel that. I took like a philosophy class last semester, which is, one semester before I graduate. And I really enjoyed it, but oh well, too late.
Yeah, here my school separates like peace, conflict, and justice separate from political science and international relations. So lots of those classes were in a different department. So we really got a lot more theory and like methodology kinds of courses than peace studies. And so yeah, very similar, very relatable that you're like, yeah, I should have heard more about this because I definitely had the same feeling.
Can I ask you guys a question? So like with your undergrads, like if you were not to go to grad school, like what would be like the job that people would walk away with? Like that, okay, I know so-and-so is graduating and they're going into this field of work after they graduate. Like what's the plan?
If I weren't going to grad school, I think I'd like to work in maybe government offices in DC, work for maybe like a rep or like a caucus or something like that. I interned for a bipartisan caucus last summer and I really enjoyed that. It was NGO work, but it was a lot of collaboration with the political side of it, which I really enjoyed. So maybe that would be an option.
I don't know, honestly. I think with political science, some people like go to law school after that. And then I think mostly it's like, working on campaigns and things.
I guess I should mention I'm going to law school. That's what I thought was, if I wasn't, I guess that's what I would have done. But yeah, a lot of people do go the law school track. It's actually.
What's the degree actually? Can you guys like say like what your undergrad is like in?
Political science.
Mine is political science and history, and then I minored in chemistry, which is why I know the chemical stuff and like water quality stuff.
Okay, that makes sense why you knew all of those water contaminants. I was very I did international affairs and geography, both arts degrees, not the science part.
Okay. So I didn't know the international, well, yeah. Anyway, okay. I will go now, I think. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So my undergrad's in finance, and I was working in finance for like 4.5 years, and I was volunteering with like a bunch of different grassroots organizations at the same time. So then I was like, I want to go to grad school and just like figure out how to like work for nonprofit organizations. Since I'm like working, I should do that instead. I hate finance. I did learn a lot about like money and like financial planning and like I don't know, some stuff. So that was good. And then so I'm going to grad school now, and the degree is Master of Public Administration, and the concentration is human rights and humanitarian policy, and the specialization is United Nations and international organizations. And so I was looking for an internship for the summer, but I was trying to be like, they encourage you to figure that out because, like a lot of, you have to do it. You have to have an internship for your, for the program, to your program. and I wanted to like, I look around. I had been on the newsletter for Nonviolence International for like a long time, like previously, just because like I just collect newsletters. That's just something that I do now. And it's pretty beneficial. I find out about stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that event. And they're like, what? And so that's been good. So I noticed when I moved here, up here in Harlem, that on my Google Maps, Nonviolence International New York was like down the street. And so I was like, oh, I should stop by there and see if they have any brochures or anything. And it was a beautiful day, and my partner and I like had just finished taking some pictures for LinkedIn. So I had like my hair and makeup and like a nice shirt on. So I just walked up to the office and I was like, hey, I don't have an appointment. You don't know me, but I'm a student. I go, to school over here, and I'm looking, we need to have an internship, and I already know about you guys. And are you, do you have anything for the summer? And the way that conversation went was I was like poking around outside, being like, oh, is this the spot? And then Marcellus like pops his head out and he's like, hi, who are you? Like, can I help you? And I was like, oh yeah. And I did all my little spiel. And he was like, oh, okay, yes, come back over here. And it was the last day that they were interviewing for interns for the spring. So I like walked back there, and I had like a lot of really perfect like experience, not only with like different grassroots organizations and my degree, but like also like my like faith group stuff is like very, I don't know, it's Buddhism. So it's like there's a lot of like nonviolent like methodologies involved. And so there's like a big studying component in like what I practice. So like I study like nonviolent methodologies all the time, essentially, is how that goes. And so like I just happen to know a lot of stuff. And they do like, like we research like a lot of like King and Gandhi anyway. So I already knew a lot of stuff. So it was great. And so they kind of like offered me the position kind of on the spot, and I sent all my information on that same day. And yeah, so that was like really fun. And that's kind of like how like I do, like I always run into things like that. And they end up being like really good. Like that's kind of how I got my job, like that I worked out for like 4.5 years in finance. So yes, I highly recommend just kind of like, you prep, you build, and then you just run into stuff. And then you're like, oh, I happen to have all of these things. Here you go. And they're like, oh, great. I guess you're supposed to be here. And
The universe just being kind to you.
Yeah.
The universe, yeah.
The universe is a compassionate entity.
Mm.
I don't know if I believe that, but like, I guess I do.
Don't you have to? Isn't that like part of your belief system?
Well, a big part of the belief system is that you don't have to do anything.
Okay.
But yeah, but like trying to cultivate like a belief in like, okay, the compassionate entity of the universe, if you believe it, it becomes true. I think is how that works.
I love that. That's fate. It's like you found your academic and work soulmate.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And this is really great because I get to like talk to you guys, and this is like, one of my favorite things to do. It's just like being able to like, I don't know, you think that you meet somebody and like they're a complete stranger, and you don't know anything about them. And I just really love like finding out like how full of potential and amazing people are, and like how like that blossoms like as you get to know people, and you're like, wow, you are like such a layered, impressive individual. I think like when I realized that about my mom, I was like, oh, you know what, I thought I didn't like you, but then like actually you have like all this complexity. Don't tell my mom I said that.
No.
Yeah. Nishka's face when you said, I thought I didn't really like you. Her face changed so fast. It was incredible. I'm sorry.
Wait, what did it look like?
It was sort of like a... And then she started laughing. It was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
The morning meetings are like my favorite part of the day these days, because for the same reasons. It just makes me laugh. I forgot who went with the last story. That was just so funny. Oh, it was
Sarah.
Yeah.
I had tears like down my face, and I was trying to hide my face in the camera.
Nishka,
Oh my gosh.
You should explain to the live audience what happened at the morning meeting today and why it was funny.
Well,
That
I
is a
have
huge
a really
mug.
bad memory, as you guys can probably tell already. But so we were talking about our technological failures, just like funny ones that have gone on. And Sarah's was so funny because she was a teacher, or is a teacher, at an elementary school. was teaching a bunch of third graders, and the assignment for the day was to draw or maybe color like a cartoon character or something. And so she asked her class what what character they would like to pick, and they picked Starfire from Teen Titans Go, which I'm such a big fan of that show. That the story.
Yay! I haven't watched the Go. I was just like talking to my friend and being like, I need to watch the Teen Titans Go. I watched Teen Titans, and then the Go seems like everybody hated on it when it came out. Everybody was like, this is, it's too for little kids and blah blah. This is a cool show, and now I'm mad. It's like, it's a cartoon. Like it's kind of all for kids, even though we're like, no, it's not, but it kind of is. So like, it's fine. Enjoy the themes. Anyway, I'm excited. I'm gonna watch it now.
I feel like whatever part 2 comes out, if anything, people just hate on it anyway and then come around to it years later. But so they picked Starfire, and she starts Googling pictures, and her computer was connected to the like the projector, and I guess she wasn't paying attention, like a very one-track mind, looking for this one picture of like a face of Starfire that the kids could like draw. And looking for that, she didn't notice everything else that was on there when she Googled Starfire. And one of the kids pointed out, like, oh, Miss Kirschbaum, this isn't like, I don't think this is kid appropriate. And it was just like really inappropriate caricatures of like Starfire, I guess fandom stuff going on. And yeah, so she had to turn it off really quickly. And anyway, that just made me laugh so hard that I was literally crying, like, and I had to turn my video off for a second because the conversation had moved on, but I hadn't. So but yeah, that was literally made my day.
Oh no.
That's like an awesome. I like that. The conversation had moved on, but I hadn't.
But, yeah, it was funny. I also liked Aidan's story a lot. It's really hard.
Wait, Aidan, what was yours again?
I slowly unscrewing the entire computer.
Oh, right. No, that reminds. I had a MacBook, and I was like in the UK, and I realized, because I had taken off the bottom, because basically what you did was you just took it all apart in order to fix the fan, right?
Yeah, well, I fixed the fan really quick, but then I was like, like I want to clean the keyboard, and like there's like a blue line on my screen that I think might be from like a loose connection. It's like a gaming laptop. It's like a.
Oh, you can take it apart.
I mean, yeah, you can take any computer apart.
No, you can't.
I cannot.
You just gotta have the right screws.
Oh, that's true.
Sometimes the Macs, sometimes they use like a crazy screw, but if you get it, you can take it apart.
That was my problem, because like I was like abroad, and I was trying to like take apart the computer, and I was like, oh, I think I can get this one, and I was using something because I didn't have any tools, because like I don't know, 21. I don't know. You can have tools at 21. I did not. And then I realized, like after Googling it, like on my phone or something, that like you can't take apart a MacBook with like tools. You need like the MacBook. They have it at the store. They don't want you to touch it.
Oh yeah, no.
And I was like, true. Oh God. It wasn't good.
But yeah, no, I basically tore down the whole thing. Well, I tore down like 80% of it. And then I was like, if I take any more of this apart, I'm not gonna be able to put it back together. And in fact, I still have 5 screws sitting on my desk over there that I didn't put back in because I forget where they go. So hopefully that's not a problem.
I guess it's not a problem until it is, so.
Yeah, very true. Exactly my thought.
Okay, so I think that we're doing really good. This is going well. My next item, as previously mentioned, which we talked about a little bit at the beginning, was what should the title of this thing be? And I don't know if you guys have any ideas. I don't know. I don't like any of my ideas. Like,
share them anyway.
Well, the whole idea is that like it's supposed to be able to be like, oh, this is what it's like to work here. And, if we were really at the resource center. But I don't want to call it like the virtual resource center. And also keep in mind that the idea is one day we will be back in real life, right? And we'll be sitting down and we'll be like having a podcast situation that will be, I think they'll have like a live stream, but like we'll be in the same physical location.
Mm.
So then what? I don't know. Like, I guess Nonviolence International.
Stay wind down.
Yeah,
Is that
Wednesday wind down, or we could do like Roundtable. Because wait, I've watched a lot of the YouTube
These
videos,
are great.
and there is like a Roundtable setup in the resource center where they did a lot of the intern videos.
Okay.
At least lots of the old ones. So that might be a
That might have been at the WeWork
double
office.
entendre. Okay, that might have been in the other office. I don't know.
Wednesday wind down sounds good, but I don't know if we're winding down.
That's
But
true.
I like the
Wednesday wind
alliteration though.
Wind up sounds like you're gonna make someone really mad and like watch them go off on the podcast. Like,
all right, I'm ready for the Wednesday wind up, and I'm gonna tell you what grinds my gears.
Maybe we have a segment where we just have a really angry discussion, you know?
Something I've listened to, definitely.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Okay.
No.
I don't know. Do you guys want to try to come up to like have like an angry session where we complain and see how that feels?
I feel like once we open that gate, we like can't go back. There's too many things in current affairs I could be mad about. Like you can't give me free permit. Like
no.
I never let myself be angry about anything. Well,
that's so funny. I'll see a news story and I'll get so mad. I'll send it to like 4 different family members and then call my sister and be like, "Did you see this? Isn't this like absolutely garbage?" And she's like, "Yeah, the news usually is." And I'm like, "No, you don't get it." Like I'm so heated.
Especially right now, there's so much.
Yeah. But I guess it's like I feel like I was really angry a few years ago, and then I kind of moved beyond anger, and like now it's just kind of like contemplative despair mixed with like, it's okay, we can do it. You know, I'm never angry anymore.
I mean, isn't anger like something you're not supposed to do as a Buddhist?
Okay, so it depends, right? So there's like 1,000 bajillion kind of like Buddhisms or whatever. But like the way that it was explained to me at this conference a few years ago was that, and I forget how many there are. There's like different like aspects of whatever. And then anger is one of the 10 worlds, right? But there's also like other kinds of like poisons or something. I don't know. It's like sutras forever, you know? But so for instance, like with the 10 worlds, right, of like in Buddhism, and then I think Zen Buddhists only have 6, and then the top 4, like Buddhahood is one of them. And they're all accessible all the time, and you feel everything. But like you kind of move in and out depending, you know, and they all exist within each other. But one of them is anger, right? And so, but it's also like the technical translation of it is like the world of asuras, which is like little like demons or something. And so basically, like it's a really human feeling, but the problem is it can be distracting, right? And so in this other list of things that I can't remember that I saw once, there's like good versions and bad versions of each thing. So like say you're working on like compassion, the way that you flip that around is like if you're struggling with like having too much of an ego, then you can like really focus on compassion. That way it'll help you like adjust your ego because you'll be able to relate like to other people around you. And the thing about the flip side of anger is like still just like anger, but the good version of anger is like kind of like righteous, like passion,
like motivating anger.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, because it's important to be able to use anger, like, because the bad version of it is just like you hate everything, you're not able to acknowledge the humanity of other people,
or using it destructively.
Yeah, and then like the good side of anger, because I remember that one, it's the only one I remember because everything else was like a different word, and the anger one was still anger, but I was like, what? So like the way that you flip around anger is you focus on anger, but it's like on like a passionate anger that's like rooted in like, you know, like that things can be better. And like that's why you're mad, you know? Because as opposed to like just being angry because like, I don't know, like something is affecting you and like you're mad at a person, you know? Like if it's about you, then that's not a great reason to be angry, but if it's about like other people, it's a great reason. But I think you can also be angry, but whatever. You should advocate for yourself. But yeah. So what were we talking about?
We
Oh,
were
right.
discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
just go ahead. Phil.
whether we should have an anger segment, a wind up segment where we get someone really heated about something and they just like let loose, basically.
Maybe we can. Like, maybe we can flip it. Maybe we can like have a starting point of anger and then we can like work through it.
Turn it into something productive.
Therapy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could try it and then like never do it again. And also no one's watching this, so that's fun. Unless people are watching this. Aidan, are there any comments in the comments?
Let's see.
Can you see them? Is it working?
It's. I mean, I haven't been like
Looking at it. I'm not looking at anything.
looking at it here.
I'm being present.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd say that like most of my anger is like righteous anger. Like I very rarely get mad at people individually, but like most of the things I'm mad about are like, wow, can you believe like this still happens when it like seems like such a fixable thing? Like most of the like activists, for lack of a better word, I feel like it's a little bit of an overstatement, but like work that I did in my undergrad was like our like health and wellness center is like tremendously understaffed and like so we'd get comments from people who are like, yeah, I've been on a wait list for like 7 months to get a mental health appointment. And you're like, that's just wild, because this is like a thing that is very clearly fixable. Like if there was more money and more people employed, there would be so much shorter wait times and it would be far less of a problem that we'd have, issues with like on-campus deaths by suicide. And so like that is the kind of stuff that really just like makes me so mad, because I'm like, lots of issues are really complicated and I fully understand that, but sometimes things are just not that complicated and it's like we could be doing better and we still somehow choose not to, and that's infuriating, in a way that's like difficult to fully explain.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like there's so many, I don't know. I actually think a lot of things are in some ways simpler than we think of them. And like, maybe the execution is complicated, but like things like, I don't know if you've heard of ranked choice voting.
Yeah. The girl that was like that really pioneered that as a project for New York. She's a graduate of my school and she came and talked to our class and we were like, oh, okay, cool. She's like, this is my whole advocacy project, but she she wasn't crazy. She was normal. Sorry.
She wasn't wound up.
She was on the Wednesday wind up.
Yeah, but like ranked choice voting to me is just like such a common sense reform that if we implemented it could like improve a lot of things. And just like there's a lot of things like that for people who don't exist who are watching. For ranked choice voting is basically you have you rank your choices. So if there's like 5 candidates in an election, you just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what that means is your vote is never wasted, right? So in our current system, the 2-party system, if you vote for a third party, your vote is essentially wasted. It doesn't go to you say you like, Elizabeth Warren and then Biden and then Trump, right? That's your order. If you vote for Warren, say Warren ran independent now. If you voted for Warren, that would be a vote that doesn't go to Biden. So it's like essentially wasted. But with this, that doesn't have to happen. It also makes candidates have to be nicer to each other because they want to get, other people's runoff votes.
Yeah. Generally, from a political science perspective, doing like single choice voting of any sort is inherently like a terrible way to get representatives. So I know Australia does rank choice for their like prime ministers. And even something like, I think it's Germany, like lots of European states do, not necessarily even ranked voting, but like you vote for a party and then the percentage of votes your party gets is intended to match the percentage of votes they'll get in like a House or Senate.
Right.
And so then there's like a list of people who your party is platforming, and however many votes they get determines like how much of the list goes into government, basically. And even something like that would be more empowering, especially to parties like the Green Party or something, where like their voters are really spread out, so they're not winning like municipal elections or that kind of stuff, so that they could build up.
Right.
That would be a way for them to possibly get a couple seats somewhere. And yeah, just in general, I think there's tons of other ways we could vote. But between, the lack of ranked choices and like the fact that there's only a single seat available for each thing you're voting for.
Right.
So in political science, this is called the M+1 rule. I don't know if you guys had to learn this stuff, but like, it's basically like if M is the number of seats in a certain election, M+1 is the number of parties you're likely to see. So if every election, if every decision is only for a single seat, you're likely to only get 2 parties.
Right.
So yeah, just in general, but like it's crazy. My sister and I are both American and Canadian. We're dual citizens. And in Canada, we vote for different parties. And in the US, we vote for the same party because there's so many fewer options.
Right.
And you're just like, this is so dumb. Like in any practical system, if so my older sister Susie and I vote in different parties in Canada, how on earth are we in the same party in the US? Like that seems just baffling. And like the parties therefore have to be really unrepresentative of like most people in them. Whatever. It's
not.
fine.
Yeah, the 2-party system is like really, really bad. I mean, first off, it's like 300 years old. So like
that's always
inherently
the funniest thing, where it's like American democracy is like, we did a great job, and then we never updated anything, and now we're trying to like run this software.
Also, just I think what you were talking about is called proportional representation or something like that.
That's proportional, not ranked. But
one. Oh no, you can institute both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you from doing both, because one is about how you put the people into the seats, and the other one is just about how you vote for the people in the seats.
I'd love to read like a blog post on that or something, Sarah, with your unique perspective of having.
I would love to, because I have thought about this a lot, especially because I voted in the US before I ever voted in Canada. And it was so strange because talking about US politics with my older sister, it was like, yeah, we're like mostly on the same page. Like, but in Canada, we do vote for different parties. And so it was really interesting seeing that like our perspectives diverged when we were given more options. Like, I wouldn't say they diverged tremendously, but it for sure made me reconsider like why on earth 2 parties is practical. And also, I think it just says a lot of damaging things about like how American democracy works, like the Electoral College, and also campaign finance is a nightmare. Like in Canada, there are actually pretty strict caps on like when you can raise money and when you can run ads. So like here, elections are limited to a certain number of days. So there's far less spending, and also donations are not just capped for individuals. So campaigns are far less expensive, which also makes it easier for independent candidates or candidates with smaller party backing to run. Yeah, I think there's just so many advantages to like massive reforms to how American voting works, because it's just not practical. I understand that 1788 was a different time. Like I read the Federalist Papers, I get it, but it seems like there's so many things in the US that I'm like, yes, just because this is how we've always done it does not mean it's the most just way to do it. There's so many other things from the 1700s we've rightfully abandoned. So why not these ones,
I mean, I'll tell you the reason. The reason is because it benefits the 2 parties that exist, and they don't.
Yes,
they don't want it to change.
That is.
Do you guys know CGP Grey on YouTube?
Yeah.
His rules for rulers video is so good. And it really makes me, it's obviously about like monarchies and other different forms, but like it does make me think a lot about how politics works, and just like how like power is entrenched, because like if it isn't, it will be destroyed. Right. And just like the scarcity mentality around like, oh no, we can't let people have these mechanisms or these levers of power, because like if I give anything away, like I'll explode. And it's just like, I think I don't know, I hope it's every like generation in not just politics, but like in all like, layers of life and like relationships that we have with each other, we like trust each other a little bit more and say like, you know what, I'm gonna let go of like some of like the control that I have to have over everything. And it's like, I trust you, it's okay, like, and like do that a little bit more and like trust each other a little bit more, and then realize that people, you can give people power, it's okay.
Right.
You want to explode. Nishka, what's up?
Oh, I was going to say, I wrote a paper on social capital in a society and how it impacts everything from economics to politics to institutions. And I started this paper writing about video games in COVID-19 and how they're like beneficial and we should really support them. And it spiraled into a whole thing about, again, power and like trust, and how like literally social capital could bring a society to its knees if we didn't have enough of it. And essentially what I came down to through my research was that social capital in the US is diminishing. So there's a lot going on, because of which we're going to see like a lot of institutions like be more inefficient and like start to crumble. And that's one of the things that makes me, I guess, like righteously angry, like we were talking about, because I was writing this paper and I was like, man, like, I really don't know what to do about this though. Like there's nothing as an individual that I could do, like apart from just like advocating for just starting over like from scratch. So.
No, like absolutely. I think I'm total advocate for like a just complete redo of the Constitution. Just rewrite it.
We could have a constitutional convention anytime. I'm just saying, I've been trying to pitch this for a while. You literally just need like a certain number of states. I think it's 35.
There's a project ongoing, I think, to have that happen.
I'm ready.
No, absolutely. I mean, of course,
a lot of people want to have a
3/5 still in the Constitution. Can I just say, things I'm righteously angry about, the fact that that phrase is still in the Constitution, that alone should merit a rewrite. Like, I understand there's the amendments, but I'm like, come on, we should just redo it. Sometimes it's so broken, you just got to be like, okay, I could do better if I started from scratch. This is the Adobe Photoshop of projects. When it crashes, you can restart, and if you do it again, it will come out better. Like,
exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Really,
I mean, sorry. Go ahead.
I guess we only have like 4 minutes. I really was curious about Nishka's like social capital thing, and like I thought that was like a really interesting and like serious claim of like there's diminishing social capital, and like what the definition of that is, and like what that means. Is it just like trust within institutions or like within your community? Like what did you define as social capital in that paper?
Yeah, so a lot of different like economists and just like political science people have defined social capital differently. But the definition that I went with was that social capital is the amount of trust in a society. And so you can look at it at a very like local level. For example, if there's more social capital within a company, it's going to be more efficient because you're not always going to be like the bureaucracy will be more broken down. You're not always going to be asking for permission, like trying to double check things, clarify things. You can have more efficient communication. So that's like pretty like centralized, like for one individual organization versus social capital in a society as a whole. How much do you trust your neighbors? How much do you trust your city, your community, and the politicians that are coming out of those like neighborhoods and those cities? How much do you trust them? Like, do you trust what they're saying to you? Do you trust what your neighbor's telling you? Things like that. And it just became this whole thing. And a tangent I went off on in the paper that I thought was relevant was the importance of sidewalks, which was interesting. So the more people that are on the sidewalks, the more eyes there are on it, the safer you are, because that's more social capital. So think about like a suburban neighborhood with kids playing around, their parents sitting on the porch watching them, safer. Or like a crowded city street with a lot of foot traffic and people watching from their windows, just like reading a book, drinking coffee. Like simple things like that contribute to social capital. On a more complex scale, social capital literally controls the economy in some ways, because you're controlling the business, you're controlling politics, all of these institutions. And this is like intermingled web where on a smaller level, you could do things just like sitting on your balcony or reading up more on the information you're telling people so that they trust you when they double check it.
Mm.
on a bigger scale, building like trust in your company, team bonding exercises, things like that. So it was really interesting and really gave me a lot to think about.
That's
It's really
cool.
interesting. I think like, so we do have to wrap up. That was good, very good. But I want to just like interject anyway, and interject myself. But like, I think the cool thing about social capital is that I like, that is such an important concept, but it is like so human. And like, it's a thing that we are constantly building. Like we're doing it right now, right? So this is like the way that we're building social capital for the organization, by like kind of showing like that you can trust us, that we're going to show up, and then we're going to at least know that we're supposed to be here from 1 to 2, and you know, build that thing. But like, I'm very confident that, considering that people, I think, are a little bit obsessed with building their own social capital, that it will be something that like we can do within businesses and like relationships with like our political, you know, representatives and stuff like that too. Because I think like we like it. We like people like trusting us, and we like being able to trust other people. So yeah, I think there's always like levels of like disruption and stuff, but like I feel confident that people will want to build more social capital, and it can be like more of a thing that we build with each other.
I mean, I think these protests are building social capital and between each other, and showing that there isn't a social trust in the government, and police in general. I also really like structural ways to build social capital, like things like either like tax incentives for apartment buildings to have like a community space in them, things like that. I love the idea of building it into the structures of our society, encouraging that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd write a longer paper on more specific things. But mine was just like super abstract. This is what I think. This is what I feel. This is what other people feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Sarah. Last word, Sarah. Give it to us.
Oh no, I was literally just gonna say it's so interesting hearing everyone's perspectives on like social capital and how you can contribute to it. Because I actually was gonna say, like, I did this project on American political media, and it showed so much how we're losing social capital, but from like the fact that media is now so tailored, and this is really contributed by algorithms. So like if you're watching this on YouTube, it's probably because you watch really similar content to this. Maybe you follow other NGOs, or you're in a related field, and so Google knows that that's the kind of content that you'd be interested in, and the sort of stuff you'd be directed to on YouTube. But if you fall into a different kind of web of content, it's basically, there's this new theory in media that like people who occupy different political spaces are starting to occupy different realities. Like they basically see the world so differently because they're receiving such different news that like the fabric of society breaks down, because it assumes that we all hold the same general norms and same general expectations for other people. And that is not true if we're all receiving very different news, and it highlights very different perspectives. So yeah, it was super interesting to hear you say that like this can be true at like such a micro level as well.
And I do want to bring up something that and then I think 2:05 is our cutoff time, because we started 5 minutes late too. So I think that'll be good. So our discussion, we had a morning meeting where we were talking about historical figures. And like one of the themes that like I realized that I wanted to bring up at the end of that conversation is that like time isn't really like before it was like this, and in the future it's like this. Like time is a wheel, and like it keeps kind of happening like in different like segments of society. So it's so interesting, this, you know, the idea of like, you know, oh, well, society is like really fractured and segmented, and we live in like different realities, but like that has always been like the case. And like it's been like it comes up in like different like ways, you know, but like they had this big study, and then, you know, I mean, like this is like my lived reality having grown up in Louisiana too, but like people listen to like the radio, and like AM talk radio can create like an incredibly different universe for people. And you know, that won't fit into like what like a, you know, a media narrative is. But the way that we communicate, like media is a comes out of like what we do naturally, you know. And you know, we're just kind of recreating the same like human expression in relationships, but just like with other tools. But yeah, so it's good. But like the more that we can like talk to each other and like, I guess like have a little bit more humility about like what's going on, and like listen to people and like different voices, and be like, oh, okay, wow, that's that your experience, is really interesting. And even if it's like something that didn't happen, like some kind of conspiracy theory or something. Like maybe we can like at least like hear like what they're trying to talk about. Like you were talking about with the water and everything at the beginning, Sarah. Like it's interesting that they were bringing up like nuclear waste when it's like that's not actually a problem, but it's interesting that like I guess they're aware that there's a contamination and like it's very dangerous, and like that's how they express that fear.
Yeah, I think it does have to do a lot with like how people like can conceive of things, and it also says a lot about like what people are afraid of and what people are worried about. Like even though we can't do anything to regulate nuclear waste because there doesn't happen to be any, like that does.
Oh, she's frozen. Oh no. What? Is she coming back? Is she coming back? We got one more minute. Oh, you're back.
We can see you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
My internet connection is unstable. I kind of figured that out, Zoom. But like, I was just saying, it does show, even though there's nothing we can do about nuclear waste that's not there, it does show that people are worried about contaminants, and that says something about like the instinctive urge that like they expect government to be able to do something about that, and it does ultimately still tell us something helpful, even if it's not necessarily the precise thing.
All right. So with that, excellent final word, Sarah. And it's 2:05. I think this has been pretty good. I don't know how to shut it off, so I'm probably just gonna leave, and then that'll probably do it. Oh look, it says stop live stream. I can do that. Great. Okay, so yeah, that's it. That's been the tentative Wednesday windup / Nonviolence International New York Research Center live stream podcast talk thing. This has been really great. This is exactly like what it would be like if we were physically here. And then we would all realize collectively like, oh gosh, we've been talking for an hour. We probably need to go work on all of our projects. So yeah, with that, yeah, I think that we're all set. It's 2:06. We're a minute over. I love you guys very dearly. Let's go work on our projects. My name is Nicole. I've been doing this thing. Who wants to? Aidan, you want to go?
Are we?
I think so. Sign off. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was really cool. I'm excited to continue this in the future. Yeah, great to get to know Nishka and Sarah better, and great to talk to you again, Nicole.
Yay. Okay. I guess that can be it. All right.
Okay.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.